Hi, good afternoon. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Mary Peters and I'm here with Ron Paterik, and we so appreciate that you're with us today and excited to have you participate in our meeting today. We'd like to get an idea of where people are joining us from, so please leave a comment with your city and state, and do comment with questions as well as we go on. Our format today will be a live Q&A. We'll be answering questions that you've submitted through the Facebook page over the last week, and we'll do our best to get all those questions or any that you send us today as well. Okay, just type your questions into the comments area during the course of this event, and we'll get to every question that we can. And also, if you'd like to know when we're going to go live or when a new video is made, be sure to like PAL on Facebook. Be sure you like PAL on Facebook and turn on notification on your phone or computer, and you'll be aware when these other events come up. I'll tell you a little bit about myself to start with before Ron and I tag team this a little bit today. I'm a native Phoenician. Grew up here when it was a cow town, I guess, back in those days. We had to pack a lunch to go to Scottsdale, and at those times. I've grown up, I've been in the transportation business for over 30 plus years with the Arizona DOT and then later with the US DOT. But most importantly and most relevant to the conversation that we're having here today is I am now parenting 4 of my granddaughters. Kids right now are 7, 9, 11, and 15, and I've had them with me for 3 years as a result of addiction on behalf of their parents. So I certainly can relate to those of you who are online with us. I'm talking a little bit about this issue of grandparents raising grandchildren, and especially difficult when addiction is involved. Let me turn to Ron now. He'll do an introduction and give you some facts and figures that we're working on.
Sounds like a good idea. Like Mary said, my name's Ron Paterik. I've been in the Valley since I was transplanted by my parents from Illinois back in 1960, so I've been here a long time.
You're a native.
I am, thank you. I currently am in private practice and have been in private practice in the mental health profession as a licensed substance abuse addictions counselor. I also work with adults and married couples as well. And I've been doing this for a long time. I added it up before I came here today, and it's 30 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that I've been in some form of mental health work. Anyway, so I've been a part of the PAL organization and a support to them for probably 3 or 4 years, and it's been, I always tell people that when my wife and I were going through our difficulties with one of our children, I wish we had had this type of support network available to us. At the time, there was nothing, and we felt so alone, so isolated, and no real resources to draw from. And so PAL is just a really terrific resource in the community, so I'm thoroughly glad to be a part of that.
You know, Ron, I was very fortunate in 2018 when the girls first came to me that I learned about PAL within days, and I was on the phone with the folks at PAL, and really, really helped me quit being what I called a serial enabler back then.
Yeah, it just makes all the difference in the world, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, and as a practitioner, it's wonderful for me too, because I have a trusted organization, group of people that I can refer my clients to and say, you know, with real confidence that if you seek out a PAL group, you're going to really be glad you did.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm also a parent of 4 kids and a grandparent of 6. We got half a dozen, and by the way things are shaping up, stacking up, we'll probably have a few more before it's all said and done. So that's always exciting. 2 of the grandkids are here in Phoenix.
Oh, good.
2 are in LA, and then my other 2, the other 2 grandkids are in New York. So we've got literally bi-coastal grandkids, which makes it hard.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you don't get to see them as often as you'd like to. But I'll tell you what, FaceTime is a wonderful thing.
It sure is. Yeah.
It just is so fun to talk to them and see their faces. And it's kind of cool to see how, even at a young age, they'll recognize their grandpa, you know, on the phone. So anyway.
I always say grandparents and grandkids have a common enemy. The parents.
The parents. That's true. Anyway, so that's a little bit of my background. And again, like Mary, welcome. Really glad that you're here. And I was given some interesting statistics, little factoids that I thought I would share with everybody. Some of these really caught me, got my attention, and so I'm going to share these with you. The first one is more than 2.6 million children in the U.S. live in homes with grandparents as the main householders and responsible for them. 2.6 million children. Of these, nearly 1 million children have no parents present in the home. That's an amazing statistic.
Sure is.
And that's just grandparents. I got to thinking of the kids that are being cared for by aunts and uncles or a cousin or an older sibling, you know, that type of thing. So another interesting statistic that jumped out at me was the percentage of grandparents raising their grandchildren is higher in states with higher opioid prescribing rates.
Yeah.
And I don't think that comes as a real surprise. No. I think the connection is pretty obvious. Yeah. More than 40% of children being cared for by a grandparent are there because at least one of the parents has a substance abuse addiction issue. Yeah. Again, probably no surprise. It's just such a common issue. And just as an aside, in my practice, I've noticed over the last few years that grandparents parenting their grandkids because of addiction issues with their kids is growing. I see more and more grandparents in my practice who are seeking help, overwhelmed, needing resources. And so this just kind of really fits in with, you know, what I'm seeing here in Phoenix. For every child that is in the foster care system right now, there are about 25 kids being raised by their grandparents and or extended family support system. That was an amazing statistic. Yes. You know, for every one child that's in foster care, there's 25 kids that are being raised by grandparents or other family members. The primary issue that grandparents face isn't necessarily with the behavior of their grandkids, but is instead with the behavior of their adult children. And again, as a practitioner, I can say amen to that. Yes. That, you know, while there are obviously challenges in raising the kids, the bigger challenge is oftentimes with the parent who's struggling with an addiction or whatever. They just bring lots of chaos into the picture and make it more difficult.
And even when you try to stabilize the kids, it doesn't take much for mom or dad to come in and kind of usurp things, and then you just got to manage it from there.
Yeah, and then you're back to trying to stabilize again, and the cycle can just keep going on and on. It's really rough. Yeah.
Well, Ron, we have some questions that we've received prior, so we're going to turn to some of those questions now. And again, please do go in the comments section if you have other questions. Write those questions to us, and again, let us know where you're from, city and state where you're from. So, a couple of the questions, Ron, that have come in. First one: I'm afraid that my son or daughter won't let me see my grandchild if I try to hold them accountable for their actions. How do I balance that?
Let's start with a easy one, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. This one is I call the rock and the hard place situation that's often brought into my office, and I'm asked, you know, to have a kind of wave a magic wand and have a nice answer, neat answer for it. Of course, one of the things I want to say right up front, Mary, is that with any of the answers, you know, I recognize there's lots of variabilities,
Sure.
lots of variables, and so, I don't want anybody to get the idea that one answer is a one-size-fits-all,
That's right.
okay?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the real conundrum there is, do I continue to enable the addict at the expense, or be there for my kids, my grandkids? And which of these, what do I choose? And what's the right choice? I give that a lot of thought, and I'm not sure what your thoughts are going to be on this, but at the end of the day, if you as a grandparent are one of the few people that can provide stability, that can provide some voice of reason and direction and provide love and nurture and consistency, I think it's more important for you to be there for those grandkids.
Yes, I agree.
And at the end of the day, I believe also you're not responsible for fixing your child. So while you don't want to enable them, at the other, the reality is, at the end of the day, you're not there to fix the child, but you do have an incredible opportunity to influence these grandkids. And so I would probably always fall on that side of the fence if push came to shove.
I agree. And one of the things that Pal taught me, Ron, was that I had to deal with my daughter and son-in-law as adults. And even though they were acting like 13, 14-year-olds most of the time, they had these 4 little girls, and I had to respond to them as adults, and really tell them what is best for these kids.
Yeah.
And I had maybe an extenuating circumstance in that my oldest daughter, not my daughter who's addicted, but my oldest daughter is a registered nurse. And when she became aware that they were using drugs in the house and the kids were there, she's what she calls a mandatory reporter. And she said, "Mom, I have to report this. I have no choice. I have to report this."
Right.
And so that then led me to say, let the kids come and stay with me so there's no hassle with this, because she does have to report this.
Yeah.
And they did let the kids come with me.
That was a good decision on their part.
Yeah, it was. I was very fortunate that they did make that decision at the time.
Yeah. I mean, again, if the grandkids weren't an issue, obviously I would be giving a little different advice, and that is you don't want to be enabling your adult kids, and you want to be drawing really healthy, good boundaries that with consequences attached. But again, you have to take into consideration what's the greater need here.
Yeah, and it's the kids.
It's those grandkids. Yeah.
Well, Ron, another question. I'm concerned about how my addicted loved one treats or ignores my grandchild. At what point do I call on the Department of Child Services? I don't want my son or daughter to be angry with me. Another conundrum.
Yeah. Well, pretty much anything you do, your son or your daughter is going to be angry with you, so you might as well just,
It's okay.
accept that, get over it. There's a lot of worse things. They're not going to be happy probably with pretty much anything you choose to do as far as a positive action or something that's decisive. I think one of the things is we have to decide, is what's going on something that needs to be reported? Is it genuinely fall in the category of abuse or neglect? And that isn't always easy to discern, but again, when in doubt, my rule of thumb would be to err on the side of being cautious. And if your instincts are telling you something's really not right here, and you're seeing it in the grandkids, or you're getting reports from other sources, I think you have to file a report. And then let the process take it, run its course.
And we did have, we had the Department of Child Services involved, and I have to say their reputation was unearned in terms of what I found with them. They were very helpful. I learned that 3 of the kids hadn't been going to school, 2 not at all, and 1 was missing so much that it had been reported to the authorities. And so some of those things really came up in terms of getting them involved, child safety involved, and they very quickly agreed that the kids should stay with me as a kinship relationship there.
and that's a good example of how things can come to light that you would have no way of really knowing,
Right.
which then make you extra glad that it was reported.
Yes.
Because these kids were clearly being neglected. Their basic needs for like education
Yes.
were being
Yeah.
addressed. So, again, I think at the end of the day, if there's a fairly strong suspicion that something's really not healthy, that the environment is not safe, it's really your duty to report that.
I agree. And there are lots of resources that can come to help you then.
Correct.
Once the Department of Child Services is involved.
Yeah.
They provided me with resources and things that helped me and helped the kids get acclimated. They'd been at my home, of course, as a grandparent, but to just have their own room, their own bed, things like that they were really helpful with.
Yeah. The other thing, too, to consider is that by taking that type of action, you are now allowing for a consequence.
Yes.
Okay.
So important.
And a significant consequence. And as we all know with addiction, that's usually what it takes to get the adult addict to begin to look in the mirror and begin to make decisions to do something new and different in their life. So that intervention can have positive effects, not only for the grandkids, but for the adult child as well.
Mm-hmm.
You do, of course, run the risk of having a child that's angry with you. But again, at the end of the day,
well, if you're not saying yes to enabling them, they're probably going to be angry with you anyway.
like I said,
So
there's very little you can do that's going to be right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And my daughter and son-in-law did ultimately lose custody of the kids because they just simply couldn't step up and do what they needed to do.
Right.
And the court gave them lots of chances. But that was the wake-up call for them. I have to say that then was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Got them into taking their recovery, importantly.
Good.
And they're now able to see the kids again.
Good. That's
Yeah.
a neat story. I like
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah. Well, here's another question. And this certainly is a big issue as well. Are there times when it's okay to say, I will not take custody of my grandchildren?
When I first read that, I thought, yeah, all the time.
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm thinking of myself,
Uh-huh.
like, what would I do? That would be such a sacrificial act. And, knowing me, I can be a fairly selfish person at times. And then also just questioning, am I really up for that task?
Yes.
Am I really the right person to be doing this? And so, yeah, my first thought was, yeah, absolutely, there's reasons to say no.
Yeah.
Probably being selfish is not one of those reasons. But I would say that the answer is maybe not. Are there times when it's okay to say no? I would say if you physically are unable to care for the
Yes.
kids, that's a time to say no.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a environment that's not healthy itself, okay, where there's other issues in your home that are unresolved and unhealthy, you certainly don't want to be bringing
Right.
grandkids into that. And so that would be another time to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times where it would be right to say no and look for other options.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think, if, for most of us grandparents, we would just feel such a deep duty and obligation to say yes and be there for our grandkids and love them and, provide a home for them, that would be the normal response.
Sure. But and my sister even said to me during this time, when I had the girls come be with me, she goes, Mary, I couldn't do it. She has health issues and other
Right.
things going on in her life that she simply couldn't have stepped up and taken 4 kiddos on. And I was fortunate. I still had a big house that I was getting ready to sell and get a condo, by the way, which I'm ever so happy.
You were going to scale down, weren't you?
I was going to scale down. But there are circumstances, and you really have to take your own well-being and health into consideration as well. If that's simply not a good solution, there are other solutions out there.
Yeah.
And I've got to know a lot of foster parents in the last 3 years, and there are some such selfless, wonderful people out there that are willing to help these kiddos that end up in foster care.
Yeah, and I think that's important to understand that there are other options out there. Another thought that crosses my mind, a reason that you might say no, is if your partner is not on board.
Absolutely.
that would be a real red flag and a reason to pump the brakes on making a decision to bring the kids into your home, because that could prove disastrous.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Yeah, you don't want to replace one problem with another.
Oh, no.
In most cases.
No, absolutely not.
Well, one other question. I'm raising my grandkids, but my daughter wants to see them. So much of the time, she never shows up, or she shows up high. How do I handle that? Well, Ron, I'll take the first bite at this, since I had that experience. When the kids were with me and the parents wanted to see them, same case. I'd tell the kids they were coming, and they wouldn't show up, or they'd show up high, and that's not okay at all. So I just got where I didn't tell the children to expect anything. I didn't tell them to expect that Mom or Dad were coming or anything like that. And if they showed up and they were sober, then they got to see them. And I would always go outside and meet them first and make sure, without getting the kiddos upset by that. But I think you have to, as you said, Ron, your first priority when you have these little ones in your house is to make sure you take care of them. And they don't need to be disappointed again.
No. Yeah, they don't need that inconsistency and that instability, reintroduce into their life.
Yeah.
And so I think providing some barrier or buffer between them and their parents is part of the job.
Yeah,
It
is.
As I was reading that, raising my grandkids, but my daughter wants to see them, and so much of the time she never shows up or shows up high. Another thing that I would say is just, that's when you create a really firm boundary and say, if you're high, absolutely you're not seeing your kids. And, and if it's a consistent enough problem, you might even create a boundary that's, even extends the perimeter even further and say, until you're in a program, until you're working your program, until you're showing, a period of sobriety, you won't be seeing the kids.
Yes.
So there's a number of ways to approach this problem, but all of them are designed to, really create a buffer there for the
absolutely.
kids.
And it's you love your adult children, but you again have to go back to they're adults and they're responsible for their behavior and the commitments that they make. And if they're not doing it right, no, you can't see the children. I would always tell the kids, your mom and dad love you. They're just not able to take care of you the way you need to be taken care of right now.
That's a great distinction.
Yeah, they just can't do that.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction.
Do we have any other questions have come in on the comments section?
My other thought, Mary, with this issue is that it's doubly tough for grandparents to set those boundaries and insist on, certain behavior from their addicted children, because as a parent, being a parent, how important the kids are to them.
Yes.
And there's a sense of guilt of denying them access to their own children on the one hand, but yet knowing that that's really the wise thing to be doing.
Yeah.
Plus, we all know that addicts are, newsflash, some of the best guilt trippers in the world.
My goodness, I told him I had enough guilt trip miles to go around the world. For a couple times.
And they'll shame you, and accuse you of being the world's worst person, and they'll pull out all the stops to get what they want. Yeah, that's the bottom line. Yeah. It's all about getting what they want, and so you have to be strong. And so I'm going to circle back around to Pal, because if you're a grandparent raising your grandkids and you're dealing with these issues, which I'm sure you are at some level or another, you need to be in a group. You need to be a part of a community, so that when you're feeling weak, when you're feeling vulnerable, you have people coming around you and going, no, you're doing the right thing, you're making the right choice, you can do this. Even having people that'll say, hey, you want me to be there the next time your kid comes over? I'll stand there with you, I'll be your backup, so having that resource is
It's invaluable.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's invaluable.
Yeah.
You need, and maybe I would say this as well, you need a support team around you when you take on these responsibilities. And I called them my posse. You know,
I like it,
my
yeah.
sister, my sister-in-law,
Yeah.
my cousin, and they really helped me. You know, they were there to help bolster me. But the PAL meetings were so good. My sister went with me to several PAL meetings.
That's awesome.
And I'd say whenever I was getting a piece of spaghetti for a backbone, I'd go to my PAL meeting and got some rebar.
Yeah, there you go.
in
Yeah.
Instead. And so
Yeah, beautiful.
and to know that that's what's best for the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe one other thing that I would say is I actually have 8 grandchildren, but the 4 are with me. And sometimes there are problems in not paying as much attention as you did before to the other grandkids, the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people just have to understand you're kind of taking on a full-time job plus here, and do the best you can with it.
Yeah.
Don't give yourself guilt trips. Do everything you can, but don't give yourself guilt trips. And stay with that PAL support network. They're so good to help you really understand what's going on with this adult addict, how to deal with it in a manner that's constructive. And many times through PAL and through parents taking that rebar reinforced backbone,
Mm-hmm.
it helps the addict get sober. It helps the addict face responsibility for what they're doing.
Yeah, because they will, again, push along the fence, the
Mhm.
boundaries, looking for the opening. And when they
Absolutely.
find out that consistently there are no openings, then they have to think about the possibility of sobriety
Mm-hmm.
being the opening back to their children.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that consistency is important, but you pretty much can't do it by yourself.
No,
You've
yeah.
got to have help.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the network is so helpful
Yeah.
to just have people, because I was still working when the kiddos came with me, and unfortunately my work involved a fair amount of travel. So I just had to have this backup system that would come in and stay
Yeah.
overnight and get the kids off to school.
Yeah.
And I was so blessed that I had them in my life
Yeah.
and still have them in my life.
Yeah, that's huge, which kind of goes into a whole nother issue that I'm surprised it's not a question for us, but I'll make it a question for us, and that is, how do you take care of yourself in the middle of all this? I mean, I know just when, Mary, when I have the grandkids, my wife and I have the grandkids over for a day, by the time they leave, I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
and maybe if I was 30 again, I would have
Mhm.
the stamina and the energy, but I'm not. And so it's like, how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah.
How do you, without being totally worn out or overwhelmed by the whole
Yeah.
thing?
Well, one of the things that helped me do that, Ron, was getting on a schedule, on a structured schedule. Because
Okay.
the kids, they'd get up whenever, they'd go to bed whenever, it just wasn't. So getting a schedule put down so they knew every day what to expect in terms of this is when you get up, this is when you get on the school bus, this is when you go get your bath and go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And they pushed back a little bit at first, but it absolutely helped them. And in that schedule time for yourself.
Okay.
Some of the things that really helped me, certainly the PAL meetings were a big help to me, and a respite where I could go and get some help there. But going to the gym was important to me. I just
Yeah.
needed to work
Yes.
out that physical stuff was important, and spending time with my Bible. Early on, I kind of neglected some of those things for myself, and
Sure.
I learned that I need to schedule time for myself
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, for your spiritual health,
Yeah.
as well as
Yeah.
your physical health.
Yes. Yeah.
And the job, by its very nature, is a very sacrificial job.
Mhm.
And, I have people come into my office every day, and in my mind, they're heroes because they're facing their problems, they're facing the challenges that life has thrown at them, and they're doing it with courage and with real persistence and with faith. And I think at the top of that list, I put grandparents that are parenting their grandkids, because it's such a sacrificial act. All of you out there that are doing this, you truly are my heroes.
Indeed.
Again, I look at where I'm at in life, where I'm ready to retire, and I'm looking forward to having lots of time
Mhm.
to myself and to pursue things that I want. and extra time with my wife.
Yeah.
And I realized that all of that would evaporate if we found ourselves having to take care of our grandkids. And somewhere in that, you've got to be able to, like you said, carve out some time for things that are essential for your survival.
Yeah, for your health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whether it's, some kind of spiritual discipline or physical discipline or not neglecting your friendships.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
And then being able to call on them for help when you need
Yeah,
it.
yes.
That type of thing.
Uh-huh.
Is, I think, really, really critical. So all of you out there, take care of yourselves and don't be afraid
Absolutely.
to take steps to take care of yourself.
Mhm. And keep watching the PAL Facebook page, because your comments now or later, we certainly are happy to see those, and we'll let you know if you sign on to the Facebook page.
Yeah.
We'll make you aware when other broadcasts are coming forward for you too, just to give you that kind of help you need. But mostly, God bless you for doing what you're doing, and we'll keep you in our prayers also, because we know what it's like.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.